Welcome to the first installment of Page by Page by Toutatis, an insane and overly thorough examination of Asterix, page by page, panel by panel. In this series, I'll be looking at the 7th Asterix book, Asterix and the Big Fight. Starting today at page 1, we'll break down the gags, the storytelling, the art, and the history of Asterix and the Romans. Because, let's be honest, who can get through a day without thinking about the Roman Empire? Asterix and the Big Fight was originally serialized in the pages of Pilote Journal from 1964 to 1965. That's issues 261 through 302 specifically. It was later collected as Le Combat de Chefs in 1966. Literally, that translates to something like The Boss's Fight or The Combat of Chiefs. But the Big Fight is catchy too. At least, it was serialized that way up until the 20th book, Asterix in Corsica. After that, they went direct to album. Keep in mind when reading an Asterix volume that it's a collection of a serialized story that appeared in a weekly magazine, usually in 1 or 2 page segments. You know how so many comic creators talk about the importance of the page turn, of teasing the reader enough at the end of one page that the reader will flip the page fast to see what happens next? For Goscinny and Uderzo, it's a similar yet slightly different thing. The end of the page often represents the end of a scene or of a moment, and it needs to satisfy the reader enough that they'll want to come back next week to read more, not just to turn the page. A big tease or cliffhanger might work, but most of these pages are meant to be complete moments on their own. An end-of-page punchline is a must. Asterix pages are generally 4 tiers tall, with 1 to 4 panels per tier. This book does something interesting at the start with 1-panel tiers. Widescreen panels, you might even say. So let's start at the top of page 1. We have an establishing shot of a Gallic village here. This isn't Asterix's home, but a different village that looks a lot like it, but with several major differences. Those differences show you that this village has gleefully accepted their new Roman overlords. The barber on the left is seen cutting off the braids of a Gallic man. Long hair was considered a trait of the Gauls. Short hair was much more Roman. Check out the entry for Gauls in Wikipedia and you get this, quote, "The Gauls are tall of body, with rippling muscles and white of skin, and their hair is blonde. They pull it back from their forehead to the top of the head and back to the nape of the neck. Some of them shave their beards, but others let it grow a little, and the nobles shave their cheeks, but they let the mustache grow until it covers the mouth." Yep, that's pretty much starting to sound like Asterix's village, all right. Another Roman writer is cited in that same Wikipedia page as saying, he basically describes the physical attributes of the Gauls as including reddish hair and large, loose-jointed bodies. Uderzo's natural cartooning style here feels like it's filled with loose-jointed bodies, so we're right on track. The hair and mustaches fit together pretty well, too. And there's an old man in this scene with bright red hair walking by. He looks a bit like Geriatrix. He's hunched over with waves radiating from his head. I'm thinking he's mad that the kids are giving in so easily to the Romans. It's not like back in his day. Note that his hair is still luxuriously long. He's definitely the holdout in this particular camp. The barber's hair is shorter already, and his scissors are about to cut off the braid of the blonde man. The first braid is already laying on the ground in front of him. It looks like probably with a couple other braids or mustaches along the way. In the words of Mr. Burns to Don Mattingly famously, "Get a haircut, hippie." Gauls who wanted to blend in with the Romans were doing just that. Does that make George Steinbrenner Julius Caesar? Let's get back to the panel instead. In the middle of the panel, 2 short-haired men are crossing paths, just slightly in the background. They are elegant scene fillers, but nothing more. It's extra that Uderzo drew on the page to give it that verisimilitude of a busy village. He didn't have to do it, but it works better than without them in that scene. They are indeed elegant scene fillers, but not much more. The other interesting part of the panel is what happens, though, on the other side of it. On the right side is something that should look weird to those who've been reading Asterix for 6 volumes already. That house looks different. It's not merely wooden doors and window frames with stone walls and a thatched roof. Look at the big stone columns in front of it. They stick out like a sore thumb. One man is looking up at them with a question mark over his head, except in this older British edition of the book I took the screenshot from, the question mark went missing. These kind of printing errors happen. It was restored in future volumes. Don't worry. In any case, that man with the question mark you're just going to have to assume is there is curious as to what's going on there from the proud homeowner you see next to him, with his hands behind his back, his chest puffed out, looking happy with his new home. That's the setup for the gag in the next tier of panels, where we learn that the proud homeowner added those columns to his house to emulate the Roman style of architecture. The passerby insults him, saying it looks more Greek than Roman. Ouch. Thus does the homeowner do an injury upon him. Along the way, Goscinny throws in his trademark wordplay humor, with Anthea Bell and Derek Hockridge handling the translation in the British edition, keying in on just how much Gaul sounds like Gaul. I've been Asterix obsessed for so long that I had to go back to the dictionary to make sure I was reading Gaul and Gaul correctly. There is a slight pronunciation difference if you really think about it and warm up your mouth more ahead of time, but I'm not sure my particular American accent is helpful with that. That's the first half of the first page. We meet a village that's the opposite of Asterix's, get a little conflict and wordplay in, and then quickly get out. We move on now to what's going on at Asterix's village. As the first caption on the page says, there are 2 kinds of Gauls. We just saw the one that gave in to the Romans. This, obviously, is the other kind. It's the village that remains the last holdout of the Gauls against Caesar's empire. Once again, we get a wide panel to establish the village, in a similar layout to the first wide panel, with the 2 main characters off on the far right, a yellow structure in the background in the middle, and a few other characters over to the left to help balance things out a bit. But check out the way Uderzo frames the entrance of Asterix and Obelix over there on the far right. It is textbook comic book framing. There's a careful cutout of the fence for them to walk through, so the fence is framing them in. The road they're walking on is cut into the bit of a berm that the fence is perched upon. The road leads the eye towards them. The tree, slightly foreground of them, wraps around the pair. The forest, silhouetted in the background, also envelops them. Uderzo did everything but draw arrows at these guys to set them up properly for the reader to be drawn directly to them. Even the bit of off-balancedness there is to this panel, where you have all the sort of the heavier side to the left, then you see how open it is to the right, and your eye kind of naturally moves from that busy side over to the slightly emptier side on the right, where we see the characters we're looking forward to seeing in this book. Again, like with the first village, that leads to a 3-panel gag in the next tier. Goscinny is setting up obvious parallels here between the 2 villages with his plotting structure. Uderzo does the same with his visuals and his panel layout. Uderzo plays a great trick here in the second panel, but let's set that up with the first. Chief Vital Statistics welcomes back the boys and asks them if there's any news from out in the forest. The boys jump immediately to their great boar hunt, the kind of thing that's always foremost in their minds. They do love their boars an awful lot. In the second panel, almost as an afterthought that seemingly has no meaning, Asterix mentions that they did run into a Roman patrol. This obviously is the bigger news that a village chief would be interested in, but these 2 treat it as an afterthought. They're smart and they're strong, and those Romans are idiots. The battle, such as it was, no doubt was a complete and total rout. We don't have to see the meeting. We don't need Asterix and Obelix to tell us what happens after they met. We know what happened. There was a great rout, and the Romans fled. And if you don't believe me, or if Asterix is new to you, just wait. The second page follows up directly on this and proves me out. We'll talk about that in the next video in this series. Look at how Uderzo helps undercut the news delivery, though. Asterix and Obelix are walking off-panel as the word balloon appears tossed off behind them. They're not front and center. They're not proudly proclaiming the news. It's an afterthought on their walk away from the chief. There is a bit of a weird tangent with that, though, where it kind of looks like Asterix and Obelix are walking off-panel into the previous panel, where they're bound to bump into their previous selves. Or maybe I've just been reading too much Mr. Invincible again lately. I'm not sure, but it's okay. You can hit pause to read this screen. It's good stuff. It's a good book. Recommended. Magnetic Press puts it out these days here in America. Perfectly translated. Give it a chance. But now, back to Asterix. In the final panel of the page, Obelix gets to deliver his crowd-pleasing catchphrase, Ils sont fous, ces Romains. Pardon my French accent. These Romans are crazy. The line was first used as he climbed up the stairs in Asterix the Gladiator, the fourth volume a couple of books back in the series. And then they walk off, almost into the sunset. They're cresting a hill as they walk away. Again, they're framed tightly in the panel, with the chief in the extreme foreground, waggling a finger in their direction as they fill the remainder of the panel as they walk away. Asterix, being small, walks straight forward, carrying his boar confidently. Obelix, being larger, but not fat, is leaning over to one side. It's such a small detail, but it's a strong character point. Obelix has that waddle that a larger person has to help carry their weight, especially when weighed down with no doubt a big fat juicy boar. And Chief Vital Statistics' thumb, of course, helps guide your eye further back towards them, back towards Obelix, who is the one talking in the panel. And that is the complete first page of Asterix and the Big Fight. When this page first saw print, it was in Pilote Journal number 261. I don't know if they printed more than one page in that issue. Being the start of a new story, maybe they did want to include more pages to get people into things. I don't know. But I do know that this page has a couple of quick gags in it, introduces us to the mirror image of Asterix's village, and brings Asterix and Obelix back to the magazine after what was really only a month away. The previous story, Asterix and Cleopatra, had just finished in Pilote number 257 4 weeks earlier. In any case, you could publish just this single page and please the readership if you want. Uderzo was also still busy drawing another serial for the magazine, Michel Tanguy, which is crazy to think of, but Uderzo regularly drew more than just Asterix for the magazine in those days. The man was an artistic beast in the 60s. You can also see that Uderzo drew the cover for that issue of Pilote Journal, which features René Goscinny in a fight with Jean-Michel Charlier. They were the founders of Pilote Journal and the writing bosses. So when it came time to draw a battle of the chiefs, Uderzo went meta and gave us this honestly beautiful and hilarious image, which I wish they reprinted in the back of the Asterix books. Maybe the special edition will have it. René Goscinny wouldn't take a beating like you see on this cover again until May 1968, but that's a story for another day. In part 2 of this series, we will meet the Roman villains for this issue and see their plan outlined. It's a bit of a wordy page, but one still filled with laughs and interesting characters and references to clouds. Get your 6th grade Earth Science book out, kiddos. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a thing. For reviews of every Asterix book, check out the Asterix agenda over at pipelinecomics.com/Asterix, or click on one of these suggested videos for another video about the glory that is the Asterix series.